Can a supervolcano actually blow? Turns out there's an area in Italy that may be due for a massive eruption, and it could take lives and livelihoods with it. It's time for this week's episode of What If, where we ask the great scientific questions of the universe and then immediately ruin it by answering them. There are some things in life you can always count on, like, for instance, the sun coming up tomorrow, or your pet slowly but surely killing you with their cuteness until you cave and get them a sweater. But the most reliable thing in all of human existence is the occasional large volcanic eruption. Just ask Pompeii. Well, you can't, because it destroyed that place about 1600 years ago and also killed everyone in the surrounding area. So it's hard to do surveys these days. Volcanoes are super common on Earth. In fact, our whole planet is technically one giant volcano, with the surface split into smaller volcanoes to keep everything interesting. These volcanoes aren't all the same, though. They come in different shapes, sizes, and danger levels. Let's start with shape. Most people are familiar with the classic conical volcano, the kind that often has a small lake at the top and a very scenic ski resort nearby. Some famous examples include Mount Fuji, Mount Vesuvius, and of course, Mount St. Noggin. Conical volcanoes are created when lava flows out of a vent in the Earth's crust and gradually builds up over time. But they're not the only type of volcano. There are also the aptly named shield volcanoes, which are much wider than they are tall, much like a warrior's shield. These are generally created by rivers of molten lava that spread far and wide before cooling off. The biggest example of this type of volcano is Mauna Loa in Hawaii, which happens to be the world's largest active volcano. Hawaii is also home to the world's largest dormant volcano, Mauna Kea, which last erupted about 4,000 years ago. And for a really impressive example of an extinct volcano, look no further than Olympus Mons on Mars. This truly gargantuan mountain is 3 times taller than Everest and took millions of years to form. But if shape matters less than danger level, when discussing volcanoes, let's talk about something called the Volcanic Explosivity Index, or VI. The index goes from 1 to 8 and indicates how big a volcano's eruptions tend to be. A level 1 eruption might just ooze lava out of a vent, while an 8 could literally blow the top off a volcano and send ash particles into the stratosphere. Most volcanoes fall somewhere in the middle. For example, Mount St. Noggin is a level 3 volcano, which means it can send ash several miles into the air and bury a surrounding area in volcanic debris. This is bad news for anyone nearby, but it's nowhere near the worst-case scenario. In order to have a level 7 or 8 eruption, you need something called a supervolcano. As of right now, there are only 2 known supervolcanoes on Earth. One is in Yellowstone National Park, and the other is in the Italian city of Naples. Now, don't worry too much about Naples being home to a supervolcano. Its name isn't actually Vesuvius, even though it destroyed Pompeii, because that was actually Mount Vesuvius. The volcano that's actually in Naples is called the Campi Flegrei, or the Phlegrean Fields, which doesn't roll off the tongue nearly as well. The volcano's been inactive since 1538, but recent findings suggest it may be due for an eruption. So what's new about Campi Flegrei? Well, researchers have recently discovered a gigantic magma reservoir beneath the volcano. We're talking roughly the size of the entire Bay Area in California, which is a lot of magma. Lead researcher Giuseppe De Luca says that his team couldn't see any direct connection between the magma chamber and the volcano itself. But that alone doesn't mean anything. Just because you can't see something doesn't mean that it's not there. If it turns out that there is a way for the magma to reach the surface, then the next eruption of Campi Flegrei could be more powerful than originally thought. How powerful? How about 30 times more powerful than the eruption that buried Pompeii? That would put the Naples eruption around a level 6 on the VEI, which would be devastating news for the 3 million people who live nearby. But what exactly does that mean? To find out, we went straight to the horse's mouth, or at least a man who looks like a horse's mouth. Here's Chris Newhall, a geologist with the United States Geological Survey.
Hi, my name is Chris Newhall, and I study volcanoes. If you want to know what a level 6 eruption would look like, let's use Mount St. Noggin as an example. Mount St. Noggin hasn't had a major eruption in over 100 years, But before that, it had a huge eruption in 1980. If Mount St. Noggin had an eruption that was 30 times bigger than that, it would be pretty destructive. It would be somewhere between an 8 and a 9 on the volcanic explosivity index. The amount of ash produced by such an event could circle the entire globe at a depth of about 6 inches. And within the Puget Sound region, it would be deposited to depths of several feet. The fallout from such an event would impact air quality and agriculture worldwide and could have significant impacts on the economy.
In other words, a level 6 eruption at Campi Flegrei would be bad. But are we actually in any danger? Not likely. While a large eruption has been overdue for hundreds of years, scientists currently estimate that there's only about a 1% chance that it'll happen in the next 2,000 years. And they're working on better ways to detect early warning signs. Because here's the good news. Volcanoes tend to give you a heads up before they blow. There are usually earthquakes, steam vents, and slight ground deformation that all signal an upcoming eruption. So even if an eruption were to happen, it wouldn't be entirely unexpected. What about the magma chamber they found under Naples? Will that speed things up? Maybe, but it doesn't change the official risk assessment, according to experts. Instead, they say, it just shows that the system is more complicated than previously thought. And studying that complexity could help them build better models of what will happen in the future. Take this recent study, for instance. Researchers were able to measure changes in the groundwater level, temperature and chemistry of the Pozzuoli area, which is located on the Campi Flegrei caldera. They used those measurements to develop a numerical model that describes the movement of fluids in the subsurface. That might sound like a snooze fest, but it's actually crucial for predicting what will happen in the future. By simulating different scenarios, scientists can better understand what might cause a dangerous eruption. Another team of researchers has been focusing on seismic activity in the area. Since 2017, they've recorded over 10,000 small earthquakes, many of which are too weak to actually feel. By studying the timing and location of these quakes, scientists are hoping to learn more about how magma moves through the crust. They've already made some interesting discoveries, including finding that the magma chamber is filled with pockets of gas bubbles. Those bubbles might play a crucial role in determining how, when, and even if an eruption occurs. It's clear that there's a lot going on beneath the surface, but it's equally clear that scientists are taking these findings very seriously. They're constantly learning more about what makes volcanoes tick, and that knowledge could one day prevent a tragedy. In fact, scientists believe that early warning systems could give people as much as a year's notice before a super eruption. That's enough time to evacuate and avoid serious injuries. So rest easy, Italy. Scientists are watching the situation closely. They're developing better models and monitoring the tiniest tremors. If it did erupt, they'd give everyone plenty of warning. Unless you're in charge of getting everyone out of the city and you decide to watch this video instead, in which case, sorry, I tried. So what do you think? How would you spend your last day in Naples? Let us know in the comments section below, and be sure to subscribe for more terrifying tales of what could go wrong. You know what else could go wrong? My body at this age? Why does my neck crack when I turn my head? Why am I losing my hair? Why is it harder for me to concentrate? What is happening to me? Thankfully, I found a way to counteract this terrible feeling of getting older thanks to a company called Lifeform. Lifeform is a health and wellness company that's all about making science accessible so you can understand your body better. They offer at-home health tests for a variety of things like food sensitivities, testosterone, and vitamin D. Basically, it's an easy way to find out what's missing or what's messing with your body. All you have to do is collect a sample, send it in, and wait for the results. One test that I took was the food sensitivity test. It analyzes your DNA and tells you what foods your body has trouble digesting. For me, it told me that I shouldn't eat dairy, which wasn't really a surprise because I'm lactose intolerant. But it also told me that I can eat spicy foods, so that explains why I love ghost peppers. Beyond these tests, Lifeform also gives you personalized recommendations on how to best take care of your body based on your own unique needs. In other words, they're helping me make informed decisions about my health, and that feels great. And that's the end of this episode. Also, this supervolcano thing probably not gonna happen, right? Probably not. Yeah, probably not. Okay, sure, maybe a little bit. Okay, yeah, it's definitely gonna happen. It's happening now. Ah, I didn't get out of Naples.